Hi, welcome to my next video. This is something really exciting for me because I waited to show this to you for a few months already. And this is because it's a collaboration. I don't do collaborations so often, but this time I have been approached by some excellent people doing something really interesting and I had a chance to participate. Also, I'm excited because you will be able to actually buy and pre-order the thing that we made together at the end of this video. And I'm talking here about the people from UKIYO-E project who aim to preserve the Japanese art of ukiyo-e illustration and hanga, so the woodblock prints. And I was asked to do a new design, a new illustration design for an ukiyo-e print that would feature a view of modern Tokyo with some retro elements. So of course, first I had to go for some location hunting to find a nice scenery to paint. So I went for the Tsukijima and佃島area because I really like how it combines some still retro elements of the old Tokyo, but also has some new buildings, so I can have this contrast of new and old. I actually featured this area in my previous book in Tokyo Storyfronts. There are some shops from this area in the book. Okay, so what is actually ukiyo-e and hanga? To explain it really simply, if you can imagine a Japanese-like illustration, so for example, I don't know, a samurai that is wiggling his hands, or some views of Mount Fuji, or maybe views of old Edo, so old Tokyo, you are probably thinking about the ukiyo-e illustrations, because these are just illustrations that present something famous from modern current times. So if they were made 200 years ago, they would be presenting some, I don't know, actors, famous people from 200 years ago, or maybe a famous view of Mount Fuji or other places that are kind of touristically interesting. And these illustrations would be then made into copies by using the woodblock carving and printing technique. But for me, I just had to focus on the interesting scenery, so I did some rough illustrations in Procreate to just show the contents, and in the end we chose this one, which is the Tsukudajima, like a small bridge and a shrine on the right side with the sakura tree. I really like this scene. I wanted to paint this place actually for many years already, but this time it was perfect for the ukiyo-e print. I like this scene because it has the retro elements like the water canal, the small bridge, like a red bridge in the background, some sakura trees, a small wooden shrine on the right side, and also a building with a sento with a public bath on the left, so you can see the chimney. But the best part is, of course, that we have these really tall buildings in the background, so it actually looks like a mix of modern and traditional Japan just meeting in this one scene. Having decided the contents of the picture, I had to redo this again in Procreate, this time being extremely careful about the contents of the picture, because this will be the base for making the actual wood block carvings that will be used for printing this illustration on paper. I had to be really mindful about the amount of details, and especially delicate, thin details that I'm putting in, about the layers, so how many colors and effects I'm using. There were things that I could not do because of the wood carving process, and the ukiyo-e project people also wanted to keep this as simple as possible, so the wood carvings can be later used for workshop events. Also, they wanted me to represent all the seasons in this one piece, so we can use it without the leaves layer on the tree, or with it. Using different colors, we can represent different seasons. And here on this breakdown, you can see all the layers that are used to make the final composite image. Of course, this is all going to be hand carved into wood. So I really tried to keep things simple, at the same time aiming for a pretty image. Okay, so here is how the pictures look like pasted onto the wood. This is Japanese cherry wood, so sakura wood, and from what I know, this kind of wood is actually really precious. There's not so much of it there, and also the people who carve the images into the wood. There's only like 9 people left doing this kind of artistic work. So I actually was really lucky to be invited into this project, so I could get my picture carved by one of the current and rare masters of Japanese woodblock print carving. We had the privilege to go to the studio and observe how the pictures are being carved onto the wood blocks. And I just have to say that I was amazed at how small details and really delicate details can be reproduced by this technique and the mastery of the person who was actually making it. It's really easy for me to just choose a thin brush in Procreate and paint some windows on the buildings in the back, but it takes a lot of effort to carve each of those windows to the wood block. And I was humbled by the process and by seeing my image being turned into this carving. Especially if you remind yourself that it takes about 7 of these carvings to print even a simple image like the illustration that I made. I think it took about 3 months to complete all the carvings, and then to complete some additional things like the title, for example, which is also carved and then printed during the process with the whole picture, together with the whole picture. Then all the carvings had to be tested, so test printed and corrected until the print result was close to what we had in mind, to what I had in mind when I did the design. Of course, all the artists that participate in this project, so the wood carver and the printer, helped with making the print result as close to the image that I submitted. Okay, so here are the finished carvings for all the layers. They already have some paint on them because they were test printed a few times, and each of these is just one layer of the picture. I just felt really weird holding them in my hands. They are a bit heavy, but I could not help myself and hold them like I was holding something really precious and delicate because just how they look. These will be used to make a limited version, a limited print run of the image in all 5 versions. So only the line art and 4 seasons, so color versions. Here I have for you some footage of the print maker, of the printer, printing actually a test print of the color version, so using all the layers. I was invited to see and document this test print, but I just wouldn't pass it. I wanted to see my image printed so much. But also I was invited to be asked a lot of questions. We wanted to make the final print as close to the atmosphere of the scene that I had in my head as possible. And because the print depends on many factors like the amount of paint used, the colors, how the print is pressed, or the order in which the layers are printed, how many times each layer is printed, does it contain a gradient effect or not. So there are many factors and many ways you can use the same carvings to make a print. I don't know, maybe you have seen it in other Japanese ukiyo-e prints. You can get a really different scene, different looking image from the same or similar carvings. It was very interesting to work with the printing artist to make the image as close to what I had in mind, and it was really interesting to see the image appear layer by layer there on the paper before me. As I said before, I don't do collaborations so much, and especially collaborations that require many people working on the same image, on the same final image. Well, maybe anime. But this time I was really surprised how each of the steps made the picture better and better, and how each of the steps was important and necessary to make a good looking ukiyo-e illustration. Okay, so after all the test prints and consultations, a methodology of printing this was decided that gave the best results for this illustration. And the first run of 250 copies was made using the woodblock prints. So you have 50 copies of each of the 4 seasons, the full color versions, and also 50 copies of only the black line art, the black layer. And I actually like this one also too. I hand signed them and they will be numbered too. But I have to say that these are really beautiful. It's really hard to show them on the screen because how organic the prints look. The paint is different on each of them. There are small differences on each of them, and actually the paper is also kind of depressed by the print, so it's like a letterpress print, so it's nice to look at and to touch also. I'm really excited because you can actually pre-order these prints on UKIYO-E project's websites, but you have to remember that there will be only 100 copies of each of the version of this print made, because these are woodblock prints, so you cannot make infinite copies from a woodblock carving, so this is a very limited edition thing. So I have already showed the QR codes for the websites, but I'll also link them below. So if you would like to add a print like this to your art collection, just follow the links. Okay, I had a lot of fun making this and making this video and participating in this project. I would like to thank the UKIYO-E project for inviting me into this. I hope you liked this video. I learned something about Japanese ukiyo-e and woodblock prints too. As always, feel free to comment, share and subscribe, and you can also support me on Patreon. See you in the next video. Bye!